John Manley was a deputy prime minister, minister of finance in Jean Chrétien's government. Chances are you remember the name, but it came to light again a couple of weeks ago when John Manley decided to pen a piece in the Globe and Mail. I'd like to just read you that headline, which says, "Dear Donald Trump, your plan to create the United States of Canada is brilliant." Tongue in cheek and explain that way at the end. Mr. Manley is on the phone right now. Thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure.
I would ask you, in the wake of what has happened just in the last couple of days, what do you think now about what you wrote?
It's still appropriate, I think. I mean, obviously, I wrote it tongue in cheek, but to deliver some serious messages, and including the fact that this is not a simple matter. There are a lot of differences between Canada and the United States that may appear subtle to many Americans, but are very important to Canadians. And it would not be an easy thing to try to make this work in any sensible way. This is not the takeover of an unpopulated territory in the Midwest in the 19th century. Like, we're not New Mexico with, a few indigenous people and a handful of Mexicans. We're a complicated society with our own institutions, beliefs, and culture, and it's not going to work unless you become a lot more like us.
I will point out, when this first came up, I think a lot of Canadians took this as a bit of a joke. And the problem, of course, is since he first brought it up, he's been talking about this idea of Canada as the 51st state on a regular basis, to the point where now some are suggesting, you know what, we need to take this seriously. It's almost like a declaration of war. What's your opinion?
I think that if you read his book, The Art of the Deal, you'd have to think that he often starts by asking for 10 times what he wants, and in the hope that he can get what he wants. So I would still put it in the category of he's overreaching. He doesn't really, in the depths of his soul, think that this is at all possible. But I think he considered it as a good tactic to get us fighting among ourselves, create chaos and confusion, and improve the negotiating position that he's in to get the various things that he does want.
So you think this is all, at the end of the day, given what you just said, a negotiation ploy for what? For trade concessions? For what specifically?
Oh, I think there are some trade concessions. There's also a big demand for military spending, which has been traditionally something that the United States government has wanted of Canada. But I think that this has become much more an issue that President Trump is willing to push. I mean, I noted I was away in the South Pacific in Australia for a couple of weeks. And when I went away, the demand was 2% of GDP to be spent on defense. And by the time I got back, it had gone to 3%. So, I think that there's a big ask there, a big expectation there. And I think that's you've got to see it in that context. So that would be a big one, together with trade concessions. Look, what they're worried about in the United States is the growth of China and China's influence. They want to build some kind of fortress, not just for economic purposes, but for defense purposes in North America. And this is his way of, I think, trying to achieve that.
I would ask you, just as a final question, and some have made this point. First of all, if Justin Trudeau got played here by Canada, basically going along with everything Donald Trump was asking for as far as the border is concerned. And secondly, do you think this serves as a real wake-up call for Canada?
Question one, no, I don't think he was played. I think he did what any Canadian Prime Minister probably would have done. You take the President of the United States at face value and at his word, no matter who he is. He's got, after all, he does have big aircraft carriers. But is it a good wake-up call? I think absolutely it is. I think that we have to adjust the strategy that has worked very well for us over the last 35 years, that we could depend upon our access, almost totally open access to the U.S. market to build our own economy. I've been in these pitches around the world on behalf of Canada. Certainly when I was industry minister and as foreign minister, the theory for investing in Canada has been we've got a country that's rich in natural resources, that's got great people, great talent, a good standard of living, rule of law, and a good ready access to the biggest market in the world. Well, if whether these tariffs go ahead or not, that last point is now in question. So we have got to revisit what the theory is for why anyone would want to invest in Canada. And we may need to make some serious changes in in our methods of taxation, in our permitting and regulations to get projects done, in the integration of our economy in Canada, in other words, interprovincial trade barriers. There's a list of things that if we can't sell ready access to the U.S. as the reason for investing in Canada, we better get fixed. And if he's given us a wake-up call to do those things, which, by the way, we should have done anyway, then maybe it's to our benefit.
Last question, just very quickly. With respect to this 30-day hiatus, if you will, on these tariffs, do you believe that's the end of this, or is this just going to pick up after 30 days?
My gut tells me that he's not going to put the tariffs in place because that would be a very hard thing for them to do, and it would have very immediate implications for the U.S. economy. Since the Canada-U.S. Free Trade Agreement in 1989, they haven't been collecting tariffs at the U.S.-Canada border. So they don't even have the paperwork for it in a meaningful way. They don't have the people that are trained and able to do it. So I think it's a practical problem. In addition, as people in the auto sector have said, this would close down production in the U.S. auto sector within 5 days. If that's at all close to being true, I think that he knows that he can't do this. So my gut reaction, I hope I'm right. I don't know, but I hope I'm right, is that this is not going to happen. But in the meanwhile, we're going to have to pretend like it is and get ready for the worst.
All right. So we've dodged a bullet. Mr. Manley, I want to thank you so much for your time. Very much appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.